Okay, we are
Got
back.
it.
We're recording. It's the Danny and Troy show after a little pause on episodes. And we're at the 3rd of March, 2022. I'm here in Bhutan.
Maybe for you, it's the 3rd of March.
Well,
It's the
yeah.
2nd of March for me.
Danny's,
You're on the coast of Bhutan, and I'm on the coast of east coast of the U.S. Right?
as you can see, I've put in an appropriate background. How do I turn that off?
I thought you were really there. Damn, Troy.
I can
Where'd you park your mule?
be here
There you go. Uh-huh.
or on the beach. But
Can we have them all?
this is where I really am, in the boring old room. But I am in Bhutan. You may not be able to see out
Sure.
the mountains.
Sure you are. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. You move around pretty good, Troy. First you're on the beach, then you're in the mountains. Man, I can't keep up with you. That's a digital nomad, I guess, huh?
The life of the digital
Are you-
nomad.
Are you a digit?
One of
You
many.
are. You're a 1. I'm a 0 and a 1. Get it? Ha, 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 ha. 10.
Mm.
Okay.
And
Well, we've started off awfully serious, right?
we've
Welcome, everybody.
got Dubba Notes joining us as well, which used to be known as Notive Notes, who's going to be recording our audio and transcribing it into text automatically, and also, yeah, identifying action points and
Golly, we must be in the future.
building up
I'm just
agendas.
looking around. Yeah. People should know how foolish you are, Troy, and that I'm the straight guy, the straight man, right? Okay. Well, it's okay. It's okay to be foolish now, you know? It really is. Matter of fact, it's preferred. So if you're not foolish, let's get with the program, okay?
That's right. Yeah.
Did you hear that before Joe Biden's speech, which was last night, Nancy Pelosi canceled the mask mandate?
Oh.
That was nice of her, wasn't it?
Okay.
Now you get to see what all these Democrats really look like. And it's like no masks, but they had alternate seating. I think that was because nobody was there.
Sure.
And his wife was leading the way, you know, kind of like a what do you call these dogs for the blind, right? Joe would have gotten lost if his wife hadn't been there. And she was in front of Joe, so the camera was on her the whole time. And it was like, who's that behind you? Why, that's Joe Biden. Oh, really? Okay. This is not a political program. Remember that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the format. I
We are
mean,
purely
yes.
apolitical. Yes, sir.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, for the show. I mean, these recordings that we've started doing. I guess this might be like number 10 or so. We don't really have much of a set agenda, but you know, talk about what's going on. We have Datalogical Services, a newly developed company between Danny and I, which has developed on top of our growing group, which is now over 160,000 data scientists on LinkedIn, and we're growing currently close to about 200 new requests per day. with that, we're looking to establish actually a new platform that is perhaps a little more decentralized and less regulated, as many people, well, probably is not many people know, but as I'll state again, my account got cancelled on LinkedIn for posting too many messages. And yeah,
Bad boy.
remove this
Bad boy.
aspect of being controlled of what we can say, what we can't say, what we can do, what we can't do, which, you know, feeds into what's happening in the world. As you know, we talk about coronavirus and mask mandates and vaccine mandates.
Trump and Trump.
Trump is a
And now
Republic.
Russia and Ukraine.
And of course,
I'm sorry, that word has been banned from the English language. Okay,
yeah.
we have to find another name for it. Them. How about them? Them Federation. Or the others.
Exactly.
Those who aren't towing the line, those who aren't playing by the rules, those who are acting like the United States, you know, and going in somewhere, killing a million people, several ways. It depends on, you know, what time of year it is. And then, of course, you know, never being sanctioned. Why? Hey, we're the United States. What's the matter with you?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I go off on something? Must be the drugs. It's the effect of the state of the disunion last night.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, one more plug I want to put in before I kind of hand over to you, Danny, is I already kind of mentioned it, a new decentralized platform, which is DAO Teaching, under development, decentralized social media platform where we can join in conversations like this and enjoy a cup of tea. I got my Bhutanese cordyceps tea ready to go.
I was thinking, okay, I didn't know what was in that cup, but now thank you for explaining that, Joy. Could have been anything, you know. Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, before we hit the record
Having
button,
your worm tea. I'm sorry.
Danny and I just said,
people are weird up there in Bhutan. Whew. No wonder China wants to take over. Or is it India? Wait a minute. Who is it? It's the United States, isn't it? No, it's some UN. I'm so confused. No, it was NATO, right? That's it. I heard Bhutan was going to join NATO.
Well, I listened to some of those recordings that you sent me. Well, the link that you sent me. Let me find the name. Mice, how do I pronounce his name?
The man of the hour?
Mearsheimer. Mearsheimer, yes. John J. Mearsheimer, who talks about,
say that 10 times real fast,
international realities and liberal ideals. And one recording I found really interesting was him talking about the situation that's going on now, obviously, with Russia and Ukraine being, well, as a solution or an alternative or a way forward, that Ukraine could be established as a buffer state. And I kind of saw some
I like to think of it as like a gaming table.
Sure.
Right? Between Russia and the European Union.
Yeah.
Where everybody gets to come, you know, have a prostitute on your elbow, throw a few dice, get drunk, and run for president and probably get elected.
Yeah. As you were mentioning, Danny, between China and India, I see perhaps Bhutan playing a similar role as a buffer state or buffer nation between these two international giants. But yeah, I just like hanging out here. It's nice, fresh air in the mountains. We get the free flowing rivers and the trees. And of course, it's a developing country. So I got to put up with a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but
Are you sure it's developing or soon to be developing? Or
it's
just
coming
wait,
soon.
it's coming
Yeah.
soon, soon. We promise. Yeah. But I think actually, are you finished? Or
Yeah.
can I throw something in?
Let's go.
Yeah. It seems like the topic is meta, right?
Sure.
Between things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. If they say so, right? And our esteemed priest, Mark Zuckerberg, and all of his wisdom being pumped into what a lot of people used to call FAANGs. F for, oh, sorry, I'm on camera now. F for Facebook. So it may, and Google and all that stuff, all these new control mechanisms, I guess you'd call them, right? And what they're doing to help us from day to day, get our shopping done. My favorite, Amazon. Yeah. Google, I can't go anywhere without Google. Netflix, I don't watch it. I like go to YouTube and watch the old 30s films. Much more interesting than what I don't see today. Not interesting at all. And I have a little bit of a film background, so I can appreciate a film, but I can't look at a film anymore without thinking about what's going on behind the film.
Right.
Oh, well, that's kind of like, dealing with things. Are they what I think they are perceptually, right? And that perception is based on, I don't know, the five senses, right? And you can stand on a railroad track and see how the two lines converge in the distance, which has been used, I believe, on numerous occasions to disprove, right, a lot of things, because they don't join. They just look like they join. And I think we play around with that. Maybe I should say play clown with that, because that really seems to be the whole display of what I would like to talk about, with your permission. And that is something that when I discovered it and then started digging deeper, I thought I had discovered it, but apparently other people are talking about it too. So it's a very interesting subject, because for me, when I heard about it and then started investigating it, I admired its simplicity. I gave it to the postmaster, went in today and asked, he said, I'm memorizing it. I said, you don't have to memorize it, because that's exactly what is happening on the planet. To explain everything, it's like the stratosphere of consciousness, right? That if you're thinking about one thing, then everything else, like our creed, you know what it is, our secret message, right? If we think about that, then everything else just falls into place. But other people can look at us and say, what are they thinking? What are they doing? We know. And it, as you said earlier, it all makes sense. But through in a different way. And now I've led up to the door of what I would like to say, but I would like to say one other thing, is that I went just for fun on LinkedIn the other day, and I was looking at a job description, and the job description said what your duties were. And it said connecting all stakeholders in one common software infrastructure. And I started thinking, if this is the Matrix, or God knows what kind of digital life I'm leading, then the whole idea was one common software infrastructure, which seems to me the whole purpose behind these FAANGs, Google, Facebook, whatever, the whole list. I don't even want to think about them because, well, the 1 minute it's Facebook and the next minute it's Meta,
Yes.
and things are like flashing around. And I don't know where I am because I haven't been told. And what got me onto this whole thing, and I won't mention names, but it's a very prestigious think tank out of Switzerland, which all my friends always call Sweden. It's like, whatever. So I was to speak tomorrow on a subject about, the future, the past, and the present of these FAANGs. But I made the mistake of commenting on how I was going to structure the conversation between my panelists and myself as chairman. And I said, I think something's going on here that I'm sensing. And I wanted my 4 panelists to have a short chat beforehand so we could prepare for the big day tomorrow at 8 a.m., which otherwise I have been removed.
It's a shame. By
the organization. And I'm starting to feel like, wait a minute, am I Russia? I've been removed, right? Next thing you know, I'll be, I don't know, paying for the air I breathe and everything else like that.
Right.
And I thought, hey, this is a Swiss organization. That's not supposed to happen, right? That's a neutral country. But it happened anyway. And where I made my mistake was one of the panel members freaked out. And she called the boss of the organization and he removed me. Why? Because he was shocked at the posts I was making on LinkedIn, which were all about different perceptual values on, in this case, 2 sides. Well, actually, you could say 3 sides. You've got Russia, you've got the Ukraine, and you've got the West, which includes the EU and NATO and the USA. And should I stand up? I'll save it for later. And I said, we've got a clash of mentalities there. And today I was thinking how people in the West are approaching Russia, much the same way that they did when the wall came down. And people started flocking into Russia, thinking that everybody does things the way we do them here in the US. It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. So I thought, okay, if we pose these mentalities, which is kind of where I'm going with this FAANG thing and my previous statement about one common software infrastructure, because this stuff doesn't exist. It's just like electrical impulses. But, a bullet is not an electrical impulse, unless, we talk about it for a while and come to some understanding. So I said, this is a clash of mentalities. And what happens there, it led me to do a little research, and I came up with a thesis. It's called liberal hegemony, right?
Yes.
And I renamed it based on how it's being utilized everywhere, and more as things become digitized, or the news ends up being only from the West. We can't let you hear this awful propaganda from the East because it might, I don't know, make your nose shrink or something. And so I said, okay, what is it? You and I had a chat about this last night, and you called it global monopoly gamification. And that's pretty good. As a matter of fact, there's a good window for you to comment when I'm going to read just a little bit and then I'll shut up, because there's a lot of commentary on this. And I call it the global domination blueprint, this liberal hegemony, right? And let me read a sentence or two about what the goals of this are, and what the benefits of this are.
Okay.
And it's almost the same as liberal democracy, because it uses democracy in its benefits section. So I begin. I wrote, after the Cold War, 1989, The USA adopted, in accordance with the goal of global domination, a foreign policy or a political ideology called liberal hegemony.
Mm-hmm.
The two enemies of liberal hegemony are realism. That's kind of like Donald Trump, right? Who just interrupted this whole globalization effort.
Yes.
To turn the whole world into, I don't know, carbon copies of the United States. And then there's nationalism, which I would say is rather popular around the planet, has been, will be, because
Sure.
it's cited as being the be all and end all and the conqueror of the two, right? Realism and liberal democracy, which, gives people the shivers. And the goals of liberal hegemony is three: to promote liberal democracy over realism and nationalism, embed states, global states or countries, in an interdependent economic order. In this case, I think it would be safe to say capitalism. And the third one is embed those countries in international institutions. You can name them: UN, NATO, EU, the list goes on, right? So you end up taking sides one way or the other. You're either for it or you're against it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the benefits, you might ask, of liberal hegemony are three: to establish human rights, democratic peace theories, and to make the world safe for liberal democracy. It sounds rather self-serving, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because if you put people on a certain economic platform, and then you're part of an organization, you have to follow the rules of the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or some liberal democracy is going to come and bomb your behind.
Yes.
That's one persuasive moment. And then, of course, peace theories and other popular things like equality, which I personally think is the first step towards herd mentality. So you're just homogenizing the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I see Ukraine as the battleground between East and West, right? It used to be Petersburg. And before that, I think it was Riga, Latvia, and many other places where all the spies get together, and look up each other's dress and so on and so on. And I'm thinking, okay, this is what pissed the maestro off, the head of the ORG. And he accused me of condoning the invasion of Ukraine. I didn't have a chance even, and I thought 25 years coming and going to Russia would give me some information that I could share with other people so they could begin to understand the situation a little bit more than, what can I say? You ate my apple, didn't you? I didn't eat your apple. I took a bite. You ate my apple. I'm going to come and, beat you up. And it's like, it's an apple, man. In this case, we're talking about human lives, but we're talking about theories, political ideologies, which can help people understand what's going on. Because if it's 19, I don't know, choose one, 92, 94 in Russia, and you come in and you think everybody does business the way you do it in the USA, you're in for a rude awakening. Mm-hmm. And that's why, who was it? Churchill who said it's like, I can't even remember his quote, but it was a very confusing place to be.
Right.
And you have to understand, if you're going to be thinking like a Russian, you've got to make some changes in your Western mind.
Right.
And a lot of Westerners don't want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
One last comment, and actually I'm finished, is that this globalization of values includes three things. Again, I'm into threes today. Mm-hmm. Diversity. It doesn't matter, your rights as a human being or as a person who resides in a certain place. There's a higher value, right? Diversity, however it's defined. And then there's equity or equality, all people are the same, which I think a little differently. I think we're all different, but it doesn't fit within liberal hegemony, damn it. And then the third one is inclusion, right? We're all part of this planet. No,
Right.
we're all here together. We're all the same. Mm. Or if you prefer, bah. And and I'm thinking, my conclusion to bring this to a head was that in order to accomplish through these FAANGs, that you have to use them to aggregate segments that enable a system of concise, manageable social control and monitoring regulation. That means suddenly you've got, your Catholic teacher, Troy, regulating, listening, eyes in the back of her head kind of a thing. I think actually not meaning any disrespect, of course, to the great non-teachers and other people. They see everything and they judge you against something which you may or may not believe. And you may get your knuckles wrapped if you tell somebody that you have a different opinion. Like me, I got my knuckles wrapped. And you want to express it on a big forum.
Right.
Which I've been on many, many times before, as a matter of fact. We used to go places, and now it's like, I'm sorry, Troy, but I've been removed.
Right. Yeah.
Is that clear as mud?
Well, I think, the summary is that I'm just going over it for the viewers, if we have one.
If we have one.
That, Danny is an international renowned influencer, and from his experience from multiple cultures and positions in business and artistic ability, and from Hollywood to places like the US, business US, and international investment, has been asked to be in a position to chair a panel that's a global forum. And in the warm-up, after mentioning his opinion on an alternative, by alternative, I mean not mainstream media position on Russia and Ukraine, has been cancelled and now not allowed to participate in the forum. And this is like an example of what's going on in the world. And it really emphasizes the naivety, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but the
hegemony.
That's
the control.
The control, and being able to recognize that. And that's why we wanted to get back to these videos and start talking about these things. That so see, when you look into it, the evidence is there. That it seems obvious that there's something not right. The example we're talking about with the US / NATO taking a position over over Ukraine, and Russia standing up and saying, actually, that's not how you play the game. Now, going back to the analogy of a global monopoly and gamification, it seems that now the US, I may as well just say them without trying to
say the word.
US created NATO, and I mean, this is just my opinion, and this is why we're having these free conversations, is to be able to talk freely. But I see it as the US, who's the main player in NATO, is driving NATO, and is driving even, yeah, the UN, and driving even the EU, because of how it's positions itself over decades of time as a leader in economic, I guess, drive, the wealth of the US, the amount of people it has. It really is, as a, if you call it a state in a global situation, a leader. And it's, I guess, by natural human behavior, in this case, the collective wanting to play a game. And the game of monopoly, we all probably are familiar with, of buying property around the board. And those that have the majority end up the winner. So NATO has been buying properties through Europe. I mean, it's all been driven by the US. And when Russia is there as a player, Russia's an established also global leader for, over the decades of leadership and drive, and the amount of people and its economic position, said, hey, I'm not going to sell you that property that it also has a stakehold on, which is Ukraine. And yeah, unfortunately, I mean, we're talking about aspects of war and global politics that just are so impactful on, the people in Ukraine. And that's what one main point is, that I think it's like, yeah, a real shame that it's had to come to this. And what I believe Danny was putting forward is that Russia was in a position and that it had no alternative. Something was happening that Russia needed to stand up for. And because Russia has such a different culture and understanding and position, it was and is able to stand up to the US. And whether it's NATO or the UN or the EU, it will do that. And that's what I personally have respect for Russia for. And I'm not condoning the war, and I believe Danny doesn't either. But when we start to talk about this, people that are walking for or being involved in these kind of politics, such as the WEF, the World Economic Forum, or they start saying, you can't say that, and cancel you. And that's something that I think needs to change. So
yeah, whoever's driving this bus, I mean, because I think it's bigger than the US, this is a program that is going to take decades to complete itself.
right.
So when you go from one political party, one president to another, or whatever, it's you have to keep in mind that whole premise, right, that we mentioned at the beginning, global domination. And that supersedes everything. That supersedes, summum bonum, the greater good, because then you can say, no, you don't understand. This is for the greater good, because we are going to be liberal democracies, and anybody that's not a liberal democracy, we're going to come and kick your ass until you become a liberal democracy. Because if we're all liberal democracies, then we're not going to have a problem with each other, because we're equal, we have the same human rights, we all are working for peace. And while you're sleeping, because that's the end product of that, right, is total boredom. It's like, okay, we win, and then And now what?
Exactly.
Well, you put everybody to sleep, and you can see, the representatives in our government, they don't even care. They make the rules, and they'll either prosecute something or they won't, depending on whether or not it's to the benefit of this global domination blueprint.
Right.
And law, they can justify it. Oh yeah, just speak to somebody and get into a discussion with them, and chances are you'll be listening to someone justify their position, right? And if you've got, like, atom bombs and jet fighters and huge number of troops and sophisticated technology, well, you're going to have a pretty strong argument. So it's either you listen to me and do what I tell you, or we'll kill you, right? Or we'll isolate you, or we'll do something to you where you're not a player, because we don't want people listening to people who renounce this whole greater good. Yeah. It's like, shut up. I liked my peace. I like being left alone. I don't want to be told what to do to further your program. Yes, I'm an American, but I think more than many others, I'm what I would call a true American, right? This country was born in revolution. And that, Nancy, that doesn't mean that you have to upset everything, that you can select your president, whether it's George Bush, Barack Obama, because he's a black man or half black or whatever. And that's the reason we've got to, look in the past while we're in the future, seeing what kind of history we recreate for people, or rewrite, or get rid of all the Confederate statues like it never happened.
Right.
And that's what they did after the revolution in Russia. They just rewrote history. And it's like, you have to understand how we see it, and that's the way it really is. And so much for opinion, and so much for critical thinking. Exactly. And now everybody's woke. That's supposed to make me feel good about myself. I don't want to be told what to think and how to act and what to do. I have enough trouble with that with my friends on the West Coast, who'll make a joke out of anything you say, because it's sort of like, look, the stupid people. And it's like, thank you for sharing, right?
Right.
Because it's like a bulldozer has pushed up a bank on the west part of the country, and they've got some sierras there, some high mountains, which, if we were still in covered wagons, would stop people from developing this isolated, I think, point of view. But if you control the media, then you're telling people what's going on. It doesn't matter whether it's the truth or not, because we have a global domination blueprint. And it's kind of funny because I don't see your name there anywhere. No, sorry. Yeah, well, I guess you'll just have to be disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think the key
and of course, they are the authority, right? Because they've got the police, and they can inflict pain, or they can, frustration, or separate you from the people. In Greek city-states, I believe that was the worst punishment of all, being ostracized.
Right.
Get out.
Right. Yeah. I think it's in a position where, okay, I'm all for gamification, and this is built in, I believe, to the human spirit to have fun and compete and kind of grow. But when it gets to this stage where somebody's bought all the land on the monopoly board, it is time to say, okay, let's start again, or it becomes, like you said, Danny, boring if there's only one player controlling the game.
Yeah.
And what the shame is that these international organizations seem to not even be aware themselves that they're creating a world that's going to be not worth, if I can say, living, because it's not going to be enjoyable. It's going to be boring, and that's not the purpose that I believe humankind is here. So things need to be changed. The game needs to be start again, I guess.
Maybe we could just close that game, right?
Sure.
But if people want to go back, I mean, how do you go back? Because suddenly you've been introduced to a new way of thinking, and you've got this thing which keeps you in touch with everybody, and the news is what's happening, and so on and so on. But the problem for me is that we're trying so hard to get a smattering of people from everywhere, right, and bring them into this wonderful country, right, and let them. I don't see them anywhere. Where are they? I guess they're in the city somewhere or whatever. But the problem is they are. How do I say this? Let me just try. They're giving the disadvantaged the advantage. And it's like, that has nothing to do with equality and all that other stuff you're talking about, because, you're changing the rules. You're saying suddenly that, I'm sorry, you're not a US citizen. And to sort of make the playing field more level, we're going to give you $5 million. Then you can bring all your family over here, or we can go back and do, you were a slave, you were a slave or a slave owner. Well, one of you gets compensated. And it's like, what are you compensating? The history that I represent as a sort of leveling motion, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Wasn't this supposed to be about equality? Wasn't this supposed to be about all that good stuff? But diversity is first on the list, right? We got to make sure we got one from everywhere. It used to be token. They used to call people like that tokens, right?
Okay.
Well, now we got token of everyone from everywhere. And we got to help them, get included, man. Inclusion, number 3. We got to include you in this. And you're all equal. So don't come to me telling me that you resent the fact that we're giving the disadvantaged the advantage with your tax money and with, suspending laws and everything else you want to do, so that we can complete our consolidation, of which, of course, what happened, the UN General Assembly said, oh, let's condemn Russia. And it's like, oh, that's everyone on the planet, diplomats, and I've never met a politician or a diplomat that I agree with. I used to go out with this highfalutin, I'm trying to skip names and titles, in Eastern Europe. And she was a diplomat. And she was saying, I got to tell you, you know what a diplomat is? And I said, no. And she said, a damn good liar.
Okay.
And like, coming from a high-ranking diplomat, that means more than just, opening a fortune cookie and reading it on a piece of paper.
Right.
You heard it from the horse's mouth. But you can't say that kind of stuff out in the open. We're just like living in shells,
right,
that washed up on the beach, like the little sand crabs, right?
Right.
And we take come out and say something and back in the shell.
Yeah. I mean, the key word you mentioned there is, rewrite the rules. And I think those that are writing the rules, if we keep that monopoly board analogy, there's a new panel or a new strip. You know how you got all those blocks to stand on, but now there's a new one. And those new ones are being created, unfortunately, by those that are owning the game. And they're saying, oh, you're not allowed to talk. Here's a little step you can go to, but you're not allowed to do this, not allowed to talk about that, but you have to make sure. So yeah, just so that you can keep playing the game, we've made a little side road for you, but on that road, you're only allowed to do this, this, and this. And it's all because, you know, we want you to be part of the big picture, and we don't want you to stop playing the game. And, but, you know, it's, and they're not telling us this part, but it's not really part of the game. You're just letting us watch you give us more money as you go around the board. But changing the rules, I think it's still possible. And building a new platform or a new road on this board that is, you know, allowing freedom of speech, allowing for critical thinking, allowing for expression of whatever you'd like to express and experiment with, you know, technology and new ways of doing things. This is what I'd like to see, and where we get there, how we get there, I should say, is unclear.
I think we're going to have to back into it, you know,
Right.
because now we have identified the aggressor, right? And the rules that they play by, what the benefits are and what the values are. That's a good starting point.
Right.
And I'd like to include this because I think being offended, which is my interpretation of how people are reacting, you know, and it's my problem too, because I grew up thinking that I'm having problems because people aren't acting the way I think they should.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of like, you know, a mini, what? Dictator, right? But people don't listen to me. And I bumped into a girl today in a store. I was buying some stuff and had a very interesting conversation. And she said, when I interviewed for this job, just a shop clerk, she said, they asked me, what would I do? She hadn't been hired yet. If somebody offended me, which apparently they asked the question, right? Because it's a common occurrence.
Right.
And she said, I would listen to them. And because she said, that's not what people do. So then we got into the whole thing about Buddha, you know, the value of arguing, which is zero. And I said to her, what I'd like now to say to our audience of one or more. That's you, Troy, at the moment.
I will say thanks, Shane, for watching. My brother. It'll be Shane, my brother.
The plant guy. Okay, that's cool. I like Shane a lot. Is how do people get offended? And I was listening to her speak, thinking it was me. It's like I thought I was the only one who knew this. Is that people get offended, right? Because it comes from me. It's all about me. And you're doing something that I don't approve of or something I don't think of. And notice I said I found the roots in myself as well, right? It's sort of like a fungus, man. You don't see the fruiting body until your whole, you know, your whole being is the roots, includes the roots of the fruiting body.
Right.
So she said, it comes from a lack of objectivity. And she was talking about how and this is a Black girl too, very intelligent woman. And whatever that would mean, I didn't mean to, please forgive me. I hope I didn't offend anyone. But, you know, that's the thing about what we're talking about is being able to speak freely.
Sure.
And she said, and listen, don't get offended. It's not about you. And she differentiated between listening and hearing, which I like that as well. Right. And I thought, wow, this is great. There's more than one person out there who feels the same way I do.
Right.
Right. And it's like, and she even said, it's not about skin color. And I said, we know that. Right. Yeah. But some people don't know that. And what's the difference in skin color and nationality?
Exactly.
Right. If you were Russian, does that mean you're green and you'd hate all green people, which is what they're preaching now on the media?
Exactly.
I hate all Russians. It's like, how many Russians do you know?
Exactly.
And those people who are talking about Russia and Russians, my first question, which has never been answered by anybody I've said it to, is, have you ever been married to a Russian? Because if you haven't,
Yeah.
you don't understand anything about Russia.
Right.
Or the woman or man
Right.
or whoever you're married, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, here you are, you're just going off on a country that doesn't agree with you. So the United States is offended. You know, it's like, shut up, please, shut up. We don't all have to be the same. Oh, back to, right, equality. Globalization of values includes equity. We all have to be the same. And that means, I'm sorry, you can't disagree. Because here it is. It's written right here. Can't you read?
Right.
And it's like, but you know, my life doesn't, I'm sorry, exiled. We're going to exile you.
Yes.
And nobody even asked. It's sort of like, you know, where you are right now. Maybe somebody comes into your room and starts setting up, right?
Yeah.
Which is going back to the Soviet Union. It's like,
Yeah.
too much space. You can't have all this space. We're going to put 5 Mexican families in there with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Or from anywhere. It doesn't matter. Right?
And
it's like, nobody asked you. We make these decisions for you. And Putin was saying, you know what you people in the West and in the USA are doing right now? We did in 1917.
Right.
100 years ago. We went through the same thing that you guys are going through now. And I like to think, okay, maybe they learned something that we haven't learned yet.
Exactly.
And we're going about it totally wrong way.
Right.
I think. And when I went into theater, the first thing that I was learned and was taught at the same time is, if you're in theater, it is your responsibility to offend everyone.
Right. Okay.
That's creativity, right?
Right.
Nobody asks you to judge me or to tell me that I can't speak or give you my opinion. Let's take that little hangy down part of you and say, you know what? It's against the rules to be offended. That's what I would like to add to the benefits of liberal hegemony.
Okay.
You know, if you're going to control, where's the part where it's okay to have a sense of humor? It's not in there.
Right.
But Nancy can have a sense of humor in her own way.
Right. Yeah.
It's
some rules
it's
need
doomed
to
to fail.
Yeah, rewritten. Some new rules, I think, need to be applied. I think, and they're fundamentally there, you know, in the Constitution, and you know, it talks about these things, freedom of speech, and but
used to mean something.
Yeah, you used to, and they're being overlooked or forgotten or used in the wrong way, like you said. We're doing this in the name of global
peace,
equality. Yeah, it's all in the name of peace. But with some, I guess, reframing or changing our mindsets of what these things mean, bringing in new rules, ensuring that things aren't forgotten, like freedom of speech, critical thinking, creativity, then we can start to really kind of embrace the commonality, like you're saying, when you meet someone that thinks the same way as you, whether it's in the grocery store or, you know, on a social media platform or in a international global conference. These are the things that need to be emphasized and brought forward and allowed to grow, rather than the controlling growth that seems to be there in these huge conglomerate monopoly.
Yeah, you said allowed, that's, I take offense with that. I'm offended.
Okay.
Because consider this. You said be allowed. I say be encouraged.
Right.
Nobody has enough control over me to allow me to do anything.
Right.
I'm free to do whatever I want. Okay, they may get offended, right? I may offend the law, and then they want to prove something, so the next guy doesn't do the same thing. I remember, I was just thinking while you were talking, is that, you read all these biblical accounts about, well, they even I was listening to a story about Islam, and most often I hear, well, it wasn't until a couple of 100 years later they wrote it down.
Right.
And it's like, okay, let's put that in perspective, because most of these writings or lessons or whatever were never written down, not because they couldn't write. The Sumerians were writing, far in advance of everybody else. Well, then what was it? Is because when you write it down, you kill it. Then there's no room for interpretation, no room for expression, no room for communicating between people, listening and speaking and talking and things like that. Now it's in a book. Oh, well, it must be true because I read it in the newspaper, or I saw it on TV, or whatever, right? I Googled it. So somebody has the authority to say what is, what should be? No. That's how we back into this kind of crap, We get even the one I'm commenting on is is it allowed? Who is not allowing me is my first question. Right.
Yeah.
And if we have a true democracy, not a liberal democracy, I don't care about isms or any of that sort of stuff about what it is you should do. It's like Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, whatever it is, there's a doctrine. You've got to follow it. And if you don't, okay, we'll stone you to death. How's that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's another.
Or we'll excommunicate you, and then you're no longer a part of this wonderful international institutions. We're all members. And then you're allowed. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not allowed, well, you're a rebel, you're not with us, you're against us. And it's like, did I say that? To pitch it to a point where it becomes confrontational or reactionary, you have a problem. From, we're not even talking about the subject matter. It's how we communicate, like it was with, Mr. Big in Switzerland, right? It was like, well, I'm having you removed. Why? Because I was shocked at the things that you're posting on LinkedIn. And I was thinking, what is it? You didn't get any this morning, right? And you're dumping on me.
Yeah. I think religion is another one where it's kind of started off with good intentions, but then.
How do you know, Troy?
Well, this is just my thoughts. And what
you were there, you and Jesus, right? Yeah. And let me give you a hand with that. I got it, Troy.
Yeah, for some reason it's just gone in the wrong direction, and like you're saying, these religions can even start wars and have started wars.
Hegemony.
But I still think something at the baseline, something at the fundamentals, and this is what I'm looking to, encourage, not have people encouraged to understand or to be able to go back to those fundamentals that I believe, if not forgotten about, can build a global international organization that has real value and is fun and is
What do you mean by
enjoyable.
that, real value?
Well, yeah, by that I mean not to say that so doesn't have real value, but I think they're taking it into an extreme that is kind of negative
Easy to
feedback.
manipulate.
Well, yeah, they're taking the game to the extreme where it's becoming boring. It's going to be no long. There's no point. You may as well close it up and put it in the shelf. So when I talk about real value, I talk about life values, ensuring that we are all finding those things that mean something to the individuals, whether you call them love and peace or fulfillment or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, but having some level of ability to grow without this kind of boring, okay, this is the mundane game. Yeah, I know these guys run the show and I've just got to be on my little road that is in this little restricted area. So yeah, that's what I mean about real values, allowing the game to develop and have people feeling fulfilled, feeling that it's enjoyable, feeling that they have these aspects of freedom of speech, can develop their critical thinking skills and be creative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember an incident that happened to me after college, bachelor's, and these two people, each one had a dog, and they came into my house, and a girl was there with her dog, and we were chatting, and this other person comes in with their dog, and the two dogs look at each other, and it's like, yeah, they just jumped on each other and just biting. And you know what I did? I tried to separate them.
Uh-oh.
You know who they attacked then?
Yeah.
Me.
Right.
Don't ever try to break up a dog fight. That's
right.
what I tell myself, right? Let them work it out.
Right.
Because, they bit me on my upper thigh, both of them.
Oh.
And it was sort of, it's like when a girl and a guy, are fighting.
Right.
Go try to solve it. Try to peaceful resolution. Hi,
right.
My name is Gandhi, and it's like bam, bam, bam. They're both going to shoot you.
Right.
So, and that's the situation in the Ukraine to a certain extent, right? Is stay out. People were dying for 8 years. Did anybody in the EU give a damn? How about NATO? How about the United States? How about anybody else? Right. They were killing Russians like it was a turkey shoot. This is what I object to. And then US, we can go and bomb Iraq on a suspicion, preemptive attack, and kill 1 million people, and nobody says a word, not a word.
Right.
Something stinks in Denmark. Not the country, but the old saying, right? Something ain't right. Yeah. I believe that was what? That was Hamlet, wasn't it?
Well, it might be a good spot to bring it to a close. I think, Danny and I and the Danny and Troy show positions itself not to get in between of these dog fights. We're not wanting to, I guess
run the world. I don't think so.
Yeah, in the same sense, don't bite us for speaking up and expressing our views, which aren't just our personal opinions. We're just two guys on the planet, and
two passionate guys on the planet.
Yeah, and we have a need and a feeling that we want to express these sorts of things, and we'll be doing more videos to come. So feel free to make a comment on the YouTube, or subscribe, or do whatever those things you need to do to stay in touch.
Wonderful. Sounds great.
Okay.
Shall we do another one tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Okay, same time?
Same time. Sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Troy.
Okay, bye.
See you tomorrow.